You are listening to Revealing Real Estate Podcast, where we dive into getting over your fear of taking risk in real estate and making money while you sleep. I'm Nico Pedizano, your host and real estate guru with over 20 years of experience. It's time to get real. Welcome back to Revealing Real Estate. Man, today we've got a wonderful episode that I think is going to resonate with many of our viewers and listeners to the show. We're going to be tackling questions that come up all the time, especially when it comes to real estate. Do I really need a home inspection? The short answer to this is yes, and here's why. A home inspection isn't just a formality. It's a deep professional assessment by an impartial third party, someone with no stake in whether the sale goes through, and who can talk you through the entire property, top to bottom, and tell you what's working, what's failing, and what might cost you later. And specifically within these times, it's very important that you want to know what you're getting into when you buy a home being so expensive, and the cost that could be associated to when you close the house and what's going to come with that. It's not about scaring you off on a deal. It's about giving you clarity and leverage. So today we've got Richard Portuguese, a licensed inspector, on the line to help us understand exactly what you're paying for when you hire a pro. So, Richard, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
You're with Mike Holmes Inspections.
That is correct.
We know Mike Holmes. You know, he's very thorough. Likes to make sure that things are done properly.
Make it right.
The reason why I wanted to get you on the show is I wanted to talk about a wonderful program that we offer here on our team. It's called the Pre-Owned Certified Program. And basically, you know, it's a verified checklist top to bottom, so that when a prospective buyer comes to buy a home from one of our listings and that home has been certified under this program, it offers a complete full inspection by yourself to come in there and do a full scope of the property. Your job within that is to provide us a clear understanding of what deficiencies are going to be impartial within the house and what needs to be corrected, major or minor. A lot of times we'll fix those deficiencies once you provide us a report, so that we can then provide that report to any prospective buyer. On top of that, we also provide a warranty, a 12-month warranty, up to $15,000 in repairs or replacements. And I'm just going to read out, Richard, a few of those things that the warranty also covers on it. It covers central heating system, so your furnace, built-in wall units, ductwork, central air conditioning, heat pumps, interior plumbing, interior electrical, hot water tanks, fridge, freezers, range hood, oven, cooktops, built-in microwaves, dishwashers, washers, dryers, sub pumps, garage door openers, garbage disposals, and trash compactors. Now, that is covered for 12 months from the day of closing. 12 months later, it'll cover up $15,000 of repairs and replacements. Richard, part of our program, when we get you in, why is a pre-home inspection such a good thing for homeowners today?
I think it's a great question, and I think you really have to know what you're buying. And these days, you know, there's a lot of ways to cover up flaws. There's a lot of things. Everybody looks at the finishes and the paint and the wallpaper and the fancy stuff, but we get into the meat and potatoes of what's really going on in the house. We're looking at the mechanical systems. We're looking at the electrical systems. And we're a set of trained professionals. We're like you said, we're third party, we're agnostic. You know, we're not looking to kill a deal. We're not looking to push a deal through. Our job is to observe and report on the condition of the house, based on the thousands of hours of training and real life experience that we have. So that's what we're all about. And for us, a home inspection is a home inspection. You know, some people differentiate between a pre-inspection or a buyer's inspection or even a maintenance inspection. So I tell people we're a lot like that Starbucks cup of coffee when we do our inspections. It's whether you get the Starbucks cup of coffee at the airport in Panama or here in Toronto, you're getting the same cup of coffee. And that's what we offer. It's the same inspection. We hit the same things on the house, and it's a consistent product. So you know when you're putting this as part of your certified home program that you've got a detailed list of the recommendations of things that need to be addressed or the things that are going to need to be addressed. And I think it's critically important that every real estate transaction have a home inspection in it. In fact, there are certain places in North America where it's a requirement, just not in Ontario right now.
Which I think it should be, of course. A lot of times when the market, I remember 2021, 2022, there wasn't time for home inspections. homes were selling, within 3 or 4 days being listed on the market.
No conditions.
There was no conditions. There was no condition on a home inspection. A lot of times that buyer, had to go in there blinded, not understanding of some of the things that could have been wrong with the property or get hidden inside the house from, a seller that maybe is looking to, throw a couple of boxes around a problem that could be, problematic and cost you a lot of money after you close in on the transaction. And what we were doing at the time, a lot of times why we were doing these pre-home inspections is like, well, we want to make sure that regardless, yes, we're representing the interests of the seller in when we're taking on a listing. But we also don't want to deal with anything that's going to be problematic for us in the future to say that, hey, the seller was aware of a certain deficiency within the home, didn't disclose that deficiency to a prospective buyer. And we just wanted to make sure that there was clarity and full disclosure when we were listing our properties. And I think we all want to kind of play above the bar, and we're those type of realtors, of course. So what we were doing is we were getting yourself inside to do the pre-home inspections on a lot of these homes, so that when people were going to get into a multiple offer, because we were dealing with 10 offers at a time, here was the pre-home inspection. This house has already been looked at. We didn't fix the deficiencies. Here's full disclosure on the deficiencies. We know what they are. We wanted to bring it a little bit further. And we were saying, well, if there is deficiencies, we feel it's the homeowner's responsibility when selling that house to get those deficiencies fixed. I think it's the right thing to do when you're selling a home at a very high evaluation. And nowadays, based on the market changing and moving more reflecting in towards a buyer's market, home inspections are coming back. And I really do like the home inspections, but sometimes they become very tedious because I don't think there's been a home, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that you haven't found a problem.
It's funny. I get that question a lot. It's I'm purchasing a new construction home, for example. I don't need a home inspection. Well, hold on a second, because we do a lot of new construction homes. We'll do the sort of the 1 year Tarion before Tarion takes over. We'll do those, and we do find things in new homes like anything else. I mean, we do have kind of a shortage of skilled trades in the country, and we're trying to get these homes up as quick as possible. And at times, corners are cut. So new homes, old homes, absolutely. It's got to happen.
Yeah, and it's got to happen. So there has there ever been a house that you haven't found a problem, including new home? Because I'm sure even GFI connectors.
You don't want to do a home inspection on my house because it's probably the worst one on the block. I cannot think of. I did a custom built home probably about 8 months ago for a guy that built the home for himself. He was a builder. And that one, as a brand new build, I think I found 6 or 8 things wrong, including problems with his 2 brand new furnaces that he didn't even know were there.
Right.
So, never had one yet.
So why don't you just walk us through then, Rich? Walk us through some of the things that you actually look for that people may not be able to see on a visual. Because I have people call me all the time, and they don't want to spend the money sometimes or what it takes to bring in somebody like yourself who's qualified and certified. Where they don't want to spend the money, so they're bringing in their uncle Sam, who's a contractor, and thinks he knows everything about it. What are things that Uncle Sam would be missing if he was walking through that house, versus what you would find?
Yeah, that's another great question. I should probably preface it by saying the inspections we do are visual and they're non-invasive. Right? We can't cut holes in the drywall. We can't take things apart because we don't own the house. So we're not putting, sewer cameras down and things like that. So it's a visual inspection. But the tools that we have and what Sam's going to miss is he doesn't carry things like a FLIR thermal camera, right? To sort of see behind the walls, as you were. And he may be going in looking for the major things like, I'm looking under the sink, the plumbing's okay, or, that electrical panel looks like it's normal. I don't see anything as a general contractor that would be untoward. But when we come in, we have a very specific methodology of what we do. We are literally jacks of all trades and masters of none. And sometimes it's better to be that way. Because our job is to call in a real pro when we do find a condition that's a problem. But I'll give you an example. We do everything in the house. So our particular process with homes, it's very consistent. We start on the outside, typically with the roof, which is usually done with a drone these days. And we'll check the ladder from a roof edge. We'll check things like drip edge flashing. We'll check the condition of the gutters and the downspouts, where they're discharging. We're always concerned in everything we do about moisture. right? We need water to live, but it's the enemy in our houses. And it's always boils
My
down.
biggest fear.
It's always boils down to water coming into the house somehow, which has caused rot, which has caused mold, and so on and so forth. So the reason we start on the roof is because if it's going to leak, it's going to come from the roof.
Yeah.
Those downspouts that are dumping right next to your foundation that you don't have kicked out 6 feet away from the house, they're just pouring water right down to the foundation again. So we start on the roof, we go around outside, we take like a macro view, so we get like kind of a wide angle, and then we'll go in up close and we'll see what's going on, and we'll pick out all kinds of stuff from typical little mortar cracks to maybe that's more than a mortar crack, maybe that's a structural shift. There's typical foundation shrinkage cracks we see all the time. So we go around one direction, we're checking up, down, we're checking electrical, we're checking drainage, we're checking slope, we're checking grading, we're checking deck construction. We go back around the other way for the reverse angle. Again, we're checking exhaust vents on dryers. We're taking information off the air conditioner. Is that condenser level? Is it making all kinds of noise? We're going in the garage. We're operating the garage door openers. We're pulling the release on it. We're seeing if they work manually. We're checking the safety systems. And we haven't even stepped foot inside the house yet.
Yeah.
So outside, I mean, that can take up to an hour sometimes. And on a larger property, when we get into, some 5,000-6,000 square foot properties on large acreage, outside could take 2 or 3 hours alone. So it's very, very thorough and exhaustive on the outside. And then once we come inside, it's pretty much everything. We tend to shy away from cosmetics. Like, you don't need me to tell you it's got granite countertops or there's a little nail pop on the wall. I'm more concerned with there's a wall that's shifted, or there was a structural wall here at one point. Looks like it might have been removed, and I don't see any load-bearing items. You might want to call in a structural engineer or check if somebody did make some major renovations to this house. Did they pull permits, right? So we're always we can't tell 100%, but we've done this long enough and we have enough training to go, that's not quite right. So we'll come inside, we'll go down to the basement typically, and we do all the exciting stuff down there. We can see usually the structure of the floor, the plumbing, the electrical, where's the water source, what the plumbing is in the house. Is it high-tech plumbing? Because contractor Sam may not realize that an orange plastic pipe that thinks is polyethylene is actually Kitec, or worse yet, polybutylene. So these are a couple of different plumbing issues that you can have in homes. They may not be able to recognize that there's possibly vermiculite in the attic. There's a lot of things that your contractors don't see every day, so they don't know.
Right.
So we do the basement, we take the furnace apart, we do pull the access doors off the furnace, which oddly enough, I had a conversation with somebody the other day, and they said that they've never had a home inspector take the access doors off of a furnace. Well, I think that's pretty important. So anything that's user operable, we do. We will go as far as to pull the front off the electrical panel, as long as it's safe to do so. And that gives us an indication now, has a homeowner been there messing around with wiring? Because when a licensed electrician does the wiring and installs the breakers, it's all nice and neat and you can see, and then you can see where the homeowner decided they wanted to add a little bit. Yeah. So Sam may not be necessarily pulling the front off that panel because he's not a home inspector and he's not equipped to do so, or he may not have a thermal camera to scan the circuit breakers to go, why is that breaker, running at 70, 80 degrees when there's no load on it? So there's little things like that we find. We go upstairs, we do the bedroom, we test the representative number of outlets, we open and close the windows, we open and close the doors, we run the faucets, the showers, the toilets. We put the house through its paces. And because we have a process and we do everything methodically, we check everything. Mm-hmm. Sam may come in, he may flush the toilet, all right, he opened the dishwasher, close the dishwasher, turn on the stove. Okay, looks good. But he doesn't have that sort of mental checklist as to, these are the things I consistently need to do to make sure that this house is a quality product. And if there's issues, we don't like the word deficiencies. We call them recommendations because it's not necessarily a defect. It's something that needs to be fixed.
There's recommendations and then there's deficiencies. How many times I'm in a home inspection, I'll let you continue your point after. I get a list a lot of times, and the problem that we face as realtors is when we get offers to the table, and now it comes down to them doing the home inspection, it's conditional home inspection, and we get their amendment that comes in because they want all these recommendations rectified by the seller. We're like, well, these are light bulb changes here, these are things, and people have to understand that those are things for you to know that are minor issues with a house. That's not a make or break part of the deal, like it would be of mold or
what's the walkaway stuff.
Correct.
And we get a lot of deferred maintenance, and I call it deferred maintenance because somebody bought a house 30 years ago and never did any maintenance. If the furnace broke, okay, the furnace is new, the AC is new because they stopped working, but they haven't touched the caulking, which is good for 20 to 30 years. Okay, it's time for caulking maintenance. So it's a lot of deferred maintenance. So we'll pick up all the maintenance stuff. We actually give at the end of our report a full maintenance homeownership list. when's the last time you opened up your ERV? And then the question I get is, what's an ERV? Let me show you this box in the basement that's been filtering your air for the past 10 years and you've never cleaned the filter in it. So we get a lot of deferred maintenance, and these are things on the report that will go on. But yeah, I mean, you see a light fixture that's missing the glass, for example. Maybe it broke 10 years ago. It's not a deal breaker for the house, right? Get a piece of glass or change a light fixture. It's the important things that we'll come in and see. Like I said, maybe it's a structural issue, or we're outside and there's concrete retaining walls for one of those driveways that goes down. Right, not so much here in Toronto, but I was born in Montreal. A lot of that there, and those retaining walls are starting to do a little bit of this. Well, that's not good, because eventually they're going to fall in. Those are the things that we're looking for. We're climbing up in the attic. Do we see all kinds of suspect black mold on the sheathing? Can we see daylight coming through the flashings and the trims and the boots and the roof? Rodents. Do we have evidence of rodents in the attic? So these are the things that Uncle Sam, he's probably not going to look for. He's probably not going to climb up in the attic anyways, because nobody wants to do that. But that's what we're here for.
Yeah, and I think that's the importance of it. Have you seen? I got two questions here. One, have you seen homeowners ever try to hide certain deficiencies that you'll catch? And probably I guess the question would be, what is the most common? Two, have you ever had realtors ask you to hide something on your report?
Boy. That's the second one. The second one's loaded. I'll answer the second one first.
Yeah.
And I will not name names, because that's not what
no,
we're
we don't
here
want to
for.
name names.
We don't want to do that.
It does happen within our industry, which is just
happens. And I will tell
unacceptable.
you, I fire those realtors. Sometimes you got to fire a client.
Sometimes you got to fire a client.
And
correct.
I don't want to. My report is my report. My job is to observe and report.
Right.
If I tell you there's a leak in the roof, and you're arguing with me as a realtor, saying, well, the roof's only 2 years old, it can't be leaking. Listen, the thermal image doesn't lie, the water on the roof doesn't lie, and the damaged paint doesn't lie. If the roof is 2 years old, call your roofer. He gave you a 20-year warranty. Tell him come
There's
back.
a problem still with the roof.
Fix the roof, and when it's fixed, I'll come back, re-inspect, no charge, and I'll take it off the report, and you're good to go. You paid me to find this stuff, not to tell me unfind it.
Unfind it.
Don't unfind.
Let's
stuff.
erase it out of this.
I don't unfind. So that's the second one.
Yeah.
So the first one, yes. Yeah, homeowners will they'll famously,
like, sometimes you go in the basement, I see all these boxes piled up in a corner, and you're not allowed to move these boxes. But I'm like, it's a little obvious that there's something hiding right behind those boxes.
It's really hard too, because let's face it. I mean, people want to stage their homes these days, right? You got to depersonalize, declutter, because you don't want all your junk in a house when you're trying to list it.
If the basement's unfinished, a lot of times we just tell them put it in the basement.
Right. Yeah. Or they'll dump it all in the garage. Well, that makes it really difficult for me to see the garage when it's piled floor to ceiling with boxes.
Right.
But homeowners like to put down carpets in places that they don't seem to belong a lot. It's like, why is there a carpet here? Because all the floor is coming apart.
Something's defected there.
Something's affected. But I'll tell you, and we can't see this all the time, but we're pretty thorough in what we do. And the other day I did one, again, remain nameless. It was beautiful property. I'll just say it was in Vaughan. It was very, very high-end property. And I'm doing my last sort of walkthrough, because we do several walkthroughs, right? The last thing we'll do is our thermal scan in the house, and then the very last thing is the attic, because we don't want to drag fiberglass around with us and it gets itchy. So that's the last thing we do is in the attic. But during the thermal scan, I see this little hints of water coming in the ceiling. Just there's an indication, you get different colors. You got to know how to interpret it. So there's a little water there. I go have a look a little bit closer, and as I'm setting up my ladder, I see that there's drywall dust on top of the outlet cover. It's like, that's somebody there's fresh paint all on that corner of the wall. And I started looking closer and closer and closer, and sure enough, I think the guy had fixed it the night before, which led me to go back upstairs, back out to the walkout on the roof, and find where there was actually a legitimate problem. So yeah, we find it all the time is, well, let's cover that up and nobody will see it, and then it'll rain in 6 weeks, and then maybe they'll see it and it's their problem. So I do see that a lot. I don't think the majority of homeowners do that. I don't think there's anything malicious. I think it's all
listen, you're always going to get the bad bunch, right? Yep.
That's right. I don't think people as a whole do that, but we've seen a lot of carpets in places that don't belong.
Older homes. I know that there's the what's that insulation? UFI
vermiculite.
UFI vermiculite too as well. I think people have to be aware of that.
Yeah.
You talked about Kitech plumbing is a huge one, because I think it was known to cause cancer as well. They wanted it all removed. Insurance companies won't claim it.
That's on the
Circuit breakers, electrical panels.
Federal Pioneer, the stab locks had some issues in the past, especially in the U.S. So there's actually there's an active recall on those on certain of the breakers. You can go to ESA and you can actually download the information from ESA's website onto which ones were affected.
Oh, really? Yeah. And I know that a lot of insurance companies, you got to be careful because before you buy these houses, you got to make sure that these homes could get insured.
Aluminum wiring.
Aluminum wiring is one, versus
we
copper.
come across this and we put the warning. We say, hey, this could be an insurance issue. And there's a lot of bad press about aluminum wiring for a lot of good reasons. The funny thing is that the bulk of the time, the wiring coming off the street to your house is aluminum when it comes into the panel. Mm-hmm. And older homes that was, I want to say like 70s, aluminum was big in the wiring. It's not necessarily a bad thing as long as you have the right field devices, the outlets and the switches that are compatible with aluminum, because aluminum will expand and contract at a different rate than copper. And what happens is guys will go out and they want to change their old style plugs to fancy new Decora plugs, or they want to put Lutron automation or one of these other home automation companies. So they change all the outlets and they're not designed to accept aluminum wiring. So what happens is the aluminum expands and contracts as it heats up, and it actually gets loose on the screws because the screws aren't designed on the modern plugs, unless they're aluminum compatible, to lock the aluminum wiring in. And then you get loose, you get arcing, you get fires. And insurance companies are like, no, I don't want anything to do with aluminum. If it's done right by a professional licensed electrical contractor, there's an antioxidant compound you can put on it. You put a little piece of copper at the end, you put the right moret on it, have the electrician do it.
You're fine.
You're good to go. But it's, again, homeowners, well, I could change a plug, no problem. And they change the plugs, and then you can have problems.
Yeah, and that's where the issues are.
But these are the things, these are the big things. You mentioned the walkaway items, right? Because could aluminum wiring be a walkaway? Maybe. Who knows, right? Could major structural issues in the attic be a walkaway? It could be. Everybody's tolerance is a little bit different for what walkaway items are.
Very true. Very true. And we see it quite often. I want to talk about marijuana grow-ops. And a lot of times, I think more before marijuana was legalized, we would it was probably one out of every 10 homes throughout Vaughan right now would be considered a marijuana grow up. But to find those reports as a realtor, because it is our responsibility to make sure that we are trying to find out any fiduciary. We have a fiduciary duty to protect our buyers, to have them under. If there were anything that was going to affect the price point of this particular house, it's our duty to find out and investigate that. So a lot of times, what we do is when one of our purchasers is ready to buy a home, we'll do a search with the York Regional Police to find out if it was ever busted through a grow up. Right. Okay. Now. Those are the ones that have been busted. Yeah. And those are the ones that we know about, right? So then we'll get that information and say, hey, this house at one point in time, it's going to be stigmatized for life over here. And it is going to devalue the home. And that's probably why we're getting it at a very good evaluation. So I think it's important that realtors always check. But sometimes it never got busted. These guys go in there, they remove their production out of the home, try and put it back, clean it up, paint it up, makes it look like it. But behind the walls, there could be some issues. What are some of the issues that you can see that would arise based on something like that?
First off, just for the record, we're not talking about my house. So
yeah.
We got that out. So that's fine.
I hear you.
It's interesting that there's.
But we're talking about your back here. But that's the point.
That's the other podcast. So there's some very telltale signs that these type of things have been done with the home. And the first is in the attic. And it's kind of funny because when you water your plants in your house, if you have a lot of plants, about 80 to 90% of that water that you're putting in your plant ends up inside your house. Yeah. And it evaporates, the moisture goes up, it ends up in your attic because homes aren't really 100% sealed. Newer homes are better, older homes are not. And the first telltale sign is when you see that potential black mold on the underside of the sheeting in the attic. And we call it potential mold. We're not allowed to call it actual mold until we send a sample to the lab. And the lab comes back and says, okay, you got this mold, that mold, this mold, that mold.
Because there's different variations.
There's different variations. You and I know pretty much it's mold, but we can't call it out until we get a lab report to say, because that's what these guys do, right? So that's one of the giveaways. But also, I did one the other day where the whole attic was just black inside. And then upon further discussion with the realtor, it was an old lady that had moved out, and she kept the humidity cranked up in the winter. She kept the temperature up. She kept the windows closed. There were plants everywhere, and she had 9 cats. And of course, all that moisture went up in the attic, and that could read as maybe there was a grow up here because the humidity's been very high for a very long time. Mm-hmm. But there were no modifications to the electrical, right? So even if they come in, they do a grow op, they're gonna probably bypass the meter. They're gonna throw in an electrical panel. There's gonna be outlets all over the place. There's gonna be high power circuits for the grow lights. There's gonna be exhaust fans. You're gonna see these things have been done, right? They're gonna cut holes. They're gonna put chimneys where they don't belong because they got to get the warm air out. In fact, I remember at one point York Region Police was using infrared to look for hot spots in people's houses in the winter to try and find the grow ops. So these are the things that sort of give us the indication, hey, somebody's done something here. I don't think I've come across a grow op yet, or one that I would say, hey, I think this house was a grow op. But those are the obvious things that we would see is somebody's been messing with the wiring. There's all kinds of circuits and outlets that have no reason to be there. There's abandoned electrical equipment. The attic is full of who knows what, and then there's all kinds of exhaust fans. I'll give you another quick example. I did one the other day. Again, I'm not naming locations or houses, but in the basement, I don't think this was a grow up. I think this might have been some type of an off-track bedding situation. But there were 10 exhaust fans in the basement. Well, nobody puts 10 exhaust fans in their basement.
Unless you're like maybe blowing some big cigars.
And the cashier's office in the corner might have also been a dead giveaway.
Yeah.
But these are the things, we don't normally see this on a home inspection, but said, hey, something was going on in this basement that wasn't what a normal residential person would do in the basement. So be aware that when you buy this house, you may start to uncover some other things as you start to renovate and tear out this basement.
Right. That's some really good insight there, and I think that's probably one of the main reasons why all homes should run through a home inspection by somebody who's been certified and licensed to look for these things.
It's a great piece of advice.
There a lot of times we'll find, and it was funny. I walked into a house right now, and I just wanted to see what your advice would be on something like this. I walked into the house to get the listing all signed up, and he had half of the insulation of the basement. It was unfinished, but the insulation of the walls, half of it was up and the other half was removed. And if you looked, it was the mold injections that were done because there was cracks in the foundation from the inside on it. Yeah. But I would say at least there was about 15 of them. So to me, it's maybe bad concrete or it was just one of those things where the guy just got unlucky and was dealing with some water issues on it, right? But these mold injections I'm hearing are pretty good.
So this is like an epoxy injection.
The epoxy injection, right? They drill it, they put the concrete in, refills it up.
I had it done in my own house 10 years ago. I had the guy fill 5 cracks, and they haven't leaked since. So concrete will shrink as it dries. It's normal. We get shrinkage cracks,
right? Or
you'll get some settlement in the foundation. It's when those cracks start to get a quarter inch or bigger, where you put like a toonie in the crack. Okay, now you got a lot of hydrostatic pressure, right? Because the water table sits at a certain level outside, so the water's pushing and pushing and pushing, and eventually you'll see it start to leak. Usually about 2-3 feet up from the floor is where I see it start to leak. Depends on the neighborhood, depends on how high the water table is. So you get these guys come in, they do this epoxy injection, they put a little bit of hydraulic cement over top, and they give you a warranty and it goes away. So I don't think, everybody's opinion is different, and we try and stay away from opinions because we're about observe and report. But to have shrinkage cracks in a foundation where somebody's done epoxy injection,
pretty standard. No?
I think that's pretty standard. I see every other house has some type of a typical shrinkage crack. It'll be at the corner of the window well, usually any of those stress points at the corner of the foundation. Oh my gosh, sorry.
That's all right.
That's usually where we see them. But if they're fixed properly, I don't have an issue with that at all.
That's good to know. So
as long as it's not leaking.
So the guy asked me, would you recommend now me recover it up with the insulation along the wall itself? I've heard very good things about these mold injections on it. Is it something that you would recommend that they would recover up because there wouldn't be no problem with it, or would you have no problem it still being exposed and shown to a particular buyer?
I got to preface it by saying I'm not a GC. I would, if this was me, if it was my house, I'd take a bunch of pictures of the repair that I had done and I'd put everything back the way it was. But I will tell you, in my own house, when I had it done, just speaking from experience, I left it for 2 or 3 weeks, waited through a bunch of rainfall. I'm like, all right, this stuff works.
We're good. Insulation,
vapor barrier, drywall backup, paint finish. Have a nice day.
Nice. Yeah. What's the worst thing you've seen? I would say give me a top. I know there's quite a few because I'm sure you walked into a few of them, so I know you probably have to think this out, but maybe top 2 or 3 on your list.
I mean, I was in a crawl space the other day that I wouldn't wish my worst enemy have to go in. It was just,
some of the living conditions people live in. It's
flabbergasting. I don't know how there were people in that house. The crawl space was full of mold. There was water all over the floor. There was electrical dangling everywhere. You can tell when it's a flip. right? It's like, tell me this is a flipper house without saying it's a flipper house. So you go upstairs and it's all fresh paint, LED pot lights everywhere. You go into the attic, there's no insulation because they moved all of it to put the pot lights in. You go down to their crawl space, there's just wiring everywhere. We will never say, run away from this house. This is not our job. Our job is to observe and report. But sometimes in my head, I'm thinking, and I'm screaming to myself, run away. But this is not what we're about. We reserve the opinions because, like I said before, people ask me all the time, would you buy this house? And I can't really answer that because my tolerance for what a house might need may be completely different than yours. So I've seen some pretty nasty stuff. The other one, to me, the big ones are when we start to find like major structural issues. And I did one the other day in Etobicoke where someone had put an addition on the side of the house. They pushed the kitchen out and the whole addition was just starting to come off the house. Mm-hmm. And everything was just wrong. So again, I'm not a PEng. I don't have those letters at the end of my name.
Obviously not done by permits because that would have never been approved.
Or maybe it was. Like, who knows, right? So again, our job, we go, okay, exercise your pre-purchase diligence, do a permit check. Oh, and by the way, I'm going to recommend that a licensed structural contractor or a professional engineer comes in here and does an assessment because you may have some soil conditions because we have erosion, we have a retaining wall that's leaning. This whole thing may have shifted and this whole house may fall down. Like this is a pretty serious issue. But again, we're not the engineers, so we defer to them. But yeah, I've seen that. I've opened up attic hatches to be met with another set of eyes, which is kind of scary sometimes.
Yeah, I've seen one. There was raccoons and a whole family of raccoons inside the attic.
They can do some damage.
And they can do damage.
They can do damage. So
yeah, they'll eat away.
They'll eat everything. We say you got to get an environmental specialist in, right? Put in the one-way door, get rid of them, and then seal it up. And now you got to remediate all that because if they've been living in there for the past 5 years, okay, well now you're going to have potential mold, you're going to have potential allergens, all kinds of stuff in their feces. Like this is not things you want in your house.
When it comes to doing the repairs to a lot of these recommendations that you do, some are going to be minor, some are going to be major at the end of the day. But my advice to most is if I have a buyer that's in the transaction. And you come in and you provide us this report and there's like, well, we want a lot of these things to be fixed before we close in on the deal. I'm like, do you really? Because at the end of the day, I would rather say, okay, well, Richard, what's the cost associated to getting all this done? Let it be $5,000, $10,000. Wouldn't it be better recommended to say, listen, give me a $10,000 reduction on the price. This is everything in the report that Richard's found. Let me go in back to you, and then once I close on the deal, I'll go back and I will rectify those issues because at least I know it's done the right way with my contractor, right? Versus the homeowner now taking in more haircuts and not being able to do the job efficiently so that they have a proper house at the end of the closing date.
I'm going to put on my politician hat and answer that question without actually answering it, because this is something where I say work with an agent. Like Nick, work with an agent who will give you that advice, right? Yeah. Because that's the thing is you can say, okay, homeowner, I want you to fix all this stuff. And the homeowner goes out, and I was in the bid spec business before and in construction and other stuff. The lowest price is not necessarily the right price, right? And that's what people don't realize.
The cheapest realtor is not always the best realtor.
That's right. That's right. You want somebody who's going to give you a certified pre-owned home as opposed to someone who just wants your listing. But I mean, everybody is looking for different things in agents. Everybody has something different to offer. I like this program. But to answer the question is we never put cost to things because we don't know. So our job is to say, you need a professional licensed roofing contractor to have a look at this roof. We found issues. There's 5 or 6 missing shingles. We've had some crazy weather over the past couple of years. These micro bursts that come out, people don't even realize they're missing 6, 8, 10 shingles, and it sits there for 2 years. So is it better to have the homeowner rectify it, or is it better to say, okay, leave it the way it is? Yes, we know it's a to-do list. We want some concessions on the price and we'll fix it. I think that's a question that has to be answered for the individual, right? There's some people, it's like, no, you guys fix it. I trust you. Give me receipts from your contractors that it's been done and I know it's been fixed. Or, your idea, which is perfectly valid too, is say, no, okay, we know this house is going to need X number of dollars. Let's work something on the deal. I'll take care of it all because that way either I'm going to fix it myself because I'm a little bit handy, or I'm going to call in somebody I've been working with for years who I trust, as opposed to just getting this guy who, it's fixed, have a nice day, and you don't know. So it could go both ways.
Yeah, and I get my advice to also people that are not selling their home right now is call in a guy like yourself, Richard, to go in there and once a year, once every 2 years, do a full inspection on the property so you know the upkeep of what your property needs to get done. Because there are things that I live in my house and I'm sure I got issues there that I don't even know exist.
This is a perfect lead in to a couple of things. So, and I appreciate you bringing that up.
Yeah, no problem.
This isn't part of the script at all. So we have a deal through Costco, right? We do a lot of maintenance inspections through Costco as well. We're a partner with them. Mike has a good partnership with Costco. And there's, like I said, we do the same inspection, whether it's buying, selling, or maintenance inspection. And we see a lot of people now that are turning their homes into multi-generational homes, right? It's like, okay, I'm going to sell, I'm not going to sell, I was going to retire, I was going to downsize, I don't want to do that. I'm going to stay in my home and I'm going to convert the basement and this type of stuff. Well, we'll come in after you've been in your home for 35, 40 years and only replace the furnace and air conditioner because it was broken. We'll come in, I'll do the same inspection I was doing as if you were buying or selling the house, and I'm going to give you a to-do list. And I'm going to say, listen, it's been, you bought the house in 1985. Your windows are coming up on end of life. 2 of them have lost the seal on their glass. Your roof was done once. It's you know what? There's not a lot of granules left on the shingles. This is the stuff where you're going to want to spend your money first before you put the basement apartment in. Because you go and spend $100,000 on your basement apartment and you don't spend $25,000 on your roof, guess what? All that water leaking from your roof is going to go down to your basement apartment and you have to tear out everything again anyways. So we'll do that. I do a lot of those maintenance inspections, and we have actually just launched our maintenance program. So you're kind of hearing it here first, I guess, to a point, but the idea is that we will be providing that service. So we'll come in, there's an app attached to it that'll send you some reminders to say, hey, it's time to change your furnace filters or time to check your smoke detector batteries, things like that. And then we'll come in once a year and almost do like a 12-point check, for lack of a better term, to check over the major things and go, okay, this is good, this is good, this is good. This needs some attention, right? So if you don't know how to change a light bulb, it's the perfect type of maintenance program for you. Kind of similar to what you do over there. We just come in once a year and check it all out again anyways.
Check it out, yeah.
And it's at a reduced price, so it's not the full price of a home inspection. So, we're on board with that type of program too. It's very important.
Well,
People
and
don't
I think
know.
in the long run, I think getting to something early can prevent other problems from happening and bigger problems from happening where we become more expensive, right?
Always. So, $500 roof repair can save you $10,000, $20,000 worth of mold remediation down the road.
For sure. And it's like the same process of changing your filters within your furnace. Like, change your filters.
Don't forget your humidifier pad too.
And your humidifier pad too. And people forget that all the time.
Of course they do. And if you have if you have an ERV, which is that box that looks like an octopus with all the vents coming out of it, open that up. There's 2 or 4 filters in there, and most people don't even know they're there. You got to clean and change those on a regular basis.
You wash them out?
You wash them. Most of them are washable.
Washable too. Yeah.
Washable filters.
That's great.
They just don't know.
I also know we call you in sometimes on rural properties where we get a lot of septic tanks, wells, pools, houses with pools. I guess you don't inspect pool equipment.
Well, we can. So our certifications, we are certified to do pool inspections. Now, we don't go swimming unless it's a really hot day. There's a number of telltale signs on pools. So I myself and a lot of our other home inspectors do work in rural areas. So we are certified for septic systems, which if they're working, they're great until there's a problem. And very, very simple septic system problems that are cheap and easy, like I'm talking under $100 repairs, can lead to the complete detriment of your septic system and $40,000 or $50,000 bills, because you can't just change an old tank. You got to redo the leaching bed in most cases, and it could be very, very expensive. And all this because a little piece of concrete broke off the side of the tank, and now you have all kinds of raw material going out into your leaching bed, and it's just destroyed.
Right.
So having a regular septic inspection, even the guy who pumps the tank, it's like if he's pumped the tank, have a look at the condition of the tank. If the concrete's all crumbling or it's a metal tank, hey, you got some work to do. But rural properties we do a lot of wet inspections, which is a wood burning inspection for insurance reasons. Those are code-based inspections. I should have probably mentioned before that a home inspection is not a code-based inspection. We know a lot of the code. We don't inspect to it. We're not municipal building inspectors. But when we do wood burning appliances, that is a code-based inspection. And private drinking water wells as well we do. But with pools, typically the telltale signs are, pools have to circulate water. Typically once every 24 hours, they're looking for like a complete circulation, or it depends on the pool and how you have it set up, whether it's salt water, chlorine, they're all a little different. Mm-hmm. I'm certainly not a pool expert. I don't have one. I have a lake that doesn't require any chlorination.
Right.
But my advice to people who are buying new homes is, okay, for your first year, call in the pool guy, let him open it. ask lots of questions and watch what he does, and then have him close it, and then you take it from there. But when we do a pool inspection, we're checking the equipment. We're making sure that the equipment is what's called bonded, which means there's got to be a wire connecting all of the electrical equipment together, sort of for grounding. It's called bonding. We're checking the condition of the pumps. We're checking that there's GFCIs. We're checking for leaks. We're checking pressure gauges. And one of the telltale signs is on a lot of pools, you'll have maybe more than one jet, right, that's putting water back into the pool. It's the supply of the water. And there'll be valves sometimes. There'll be a manifold, right? So you might have 3 or 4, and you can turn them off to service them. So when I show up and I'm looking at pool equipment, which typically we just do kind of a cursory. If you want the really in-depth pool, I say, yes, we can do it, but let your pool guys do it, because they do this every single day, and that's what we do anyways. We call it the experts. But if 3 of those valves are shut off and only one of them's on and the pool's open and running, there's a reason why 3 of those valves are shut off. And it's most likely somebody didn't drain the pool properly one winter. Water was left in the pipe. It froze, it cracked. They turned it on. Pressure wasn't building. They realized they had a leak. They isolated it to that valve. Okay, we'll turn that one off. We still have 3 more. And then a couple of years later, same thing happens. Now we're down to the last jet. So when that one freezes, now we got to go dig. We got to find these leaks, and this can be very, very expensive.
Yeah.
So that's a telltale sign. Rusted pool heaters, they can be expensive to replace a pool heater. It's not like a furnace. So there's some visual cues that can give it away too.
And water too, right? When you're dealing with well water, you can find bacteria in well water, a lot of iron in well water. I know a lot of times, sometimes we'll go there and I'll turn on the tap and the water's coming out yellow.
Yeah.
Do you take the water well for testing?
So we can. Most municipalities will offer a free testing for Cryptosporidium and E. coli and the bacteria and things like that. Your local municipal health authority will do that. If you want to do a full panel, which is a little bit different than looking just for the bacteria, you want to look for heavy metals, cadmium, arsenic, lead, all that other stuff. We have private labs that can do that. We take a sample in, and it can be costly to do the full panel, but now you know exactly what you're drinking, especially if you're doing what's called a drilled well versus a dug well. There's all kinds of differences in the well. One of them is hit the aquifer, one of them is grabbing groundwater. And then typically you'll see in the room where your processing equipment is, you'll see all kinds of staged filters. There'll be a mechanical filter, there'll be a carbon filter, then there'll be a UV light to disinfect it, then there'll be water softeners and treatment. So you got to know the type of well you're working with, and that's why you want to call in a professional home inspector who knows the difference between the types of wells and knows what to look for, but can also give you the advice to say, hey, a lot of people don't realize that UV bulb has a lifespan, typically 500 or 1,000 hours. And there's a little sticker next to it where you're supposed to mark where you change it. Well, it hasn't been changed since 1987. So does this even work?
Yeah, right.
And those filters have to be changed on a regular basis. So a lot of working with a professional who's done this for a while is the advice that they give you on the maintenance and on systems where you may not have a clue.
Yeah. So listen, we're coming down to the end of the show, and my advice to everybody is, make sure that you get a guy like Richard in to come and inspect your home. I do recommend all homes should be inspected before purchasing. If you are in a multiple offer situation, there are scenarios too where you can do a pre-inspection prior to even putting an offer in, worth the money that's going to be spent, just so that you can get a peace of mind at the end of the day. And that's one of the reasons why we came out with that pre-owned certified when the market was really hot, and we still offer today within the market. Whether you're a buyer or you're a seller within the market today, you can get onto our pre-owned certified program. It's the same thing as buying a used car. The entire house gets inspected by Richard. We'll list all the deficiencies within the property itself that he would recommend to get rectified on it. Once that is done, we can either go back to the seller or have the sellers make those repairs, or if you want to make those repairs yourself, you can after the fact. At least you're aware about them. And we'll also give you a 12-month warranty from a third-party insurance company that's going to cover everything, the mechanics of that home, up to 12 months, up to $15,000 in repairs or replacements of the home itself. So I think it's a wonderful program, and I truly, highly recommend, do not buy a house without a home inspection done on the property. Richard, I want to thank you for coming in on the show today. You've given us some wonderful insight on it. If there's a lot of realtors that listen to our show, and a lot of homeowners, if they want it done, how can they reach you? What's the best way to reach you?
So they can reach me through our 800 number, which we'll put up on the screen hopefully later.
Yeah.
They can get a hold of us through our website at mikeholmesinspections.com. I put out my email and phone number. We can put that up later. The one thing I would say is, whether you choose to use me or a different home inspector, because I'm not the only one out there, I got to face reality, is that there's 2 things that you want to ask your home inspector.
Great.
Is number 1, are you certified by a governing body? and there are a few governing bodies. We actually, Holmes Academy, we are one of the governing bodies. There's CAPI, which is the Canadian Association of Home Inspector Professionals, or Professional Home Inspectors. I get that backwards sometimes. There's Internachi. There's a few of them that actually accredit through thousands of hours of training. And the other really, really important question to ask your home inspector is, do you have the certified designation? But more importantly, do you carry errors and omissions insurance? And that's really going to set apart the professionals like yourself versus, I don't want to call them trunk slammers, but versus those guys who are just in and out. It's a quick walkthrough, and if something goes wrong, you don't have any recourse. And that's the difference in dealing with a professional who offers a program like what you guys are offering, and professionals who are certified like us, where this is what we do. This is our job, man. We take
and it's
seriously.
important you're going to deal with somebody who has those type of certifications, because I've been through situations where the home inspector's gone in there and the guy didn't thoroughly check out the house, and then what happens is it makes us look bad, because once they close on the deal and they walk into the house, they're like, well, this house now, we have this problem, this problem, this problem.
Yeah.
Why didn't your home inspector find the problem? So we always like to recommend, and through the Real Estate Council of Ontario that governs our license, we can't just recommend one individual,
No, you have to
lawyer,
absolutely.
inspector, or any of that nature. But, at the end of the day, making sure that the people that you do work with are reputable and they're going to do a good job, because it is an example of your reputation and who you are within a brand.
And that's why I came on board with Homes Group. I could have been Richard the Home Inspector, but who's Richard the Home Inspector, right? So we have quality, integrity, and trust behind the name, and it really does make a difference. I've seen some of those other reports, and I'm sure you've seen them too.
Oh, I've seen them. Yeah. So. Richard, I'd like to thank you again for coming on the show. It's been a pleasure. If you guys are interested in giving Richard, we'll post it in the link below.
Sure, yeah.
Reach out to Richard. Even if you are not looking to buy or sell, I recommend you hire Richard to go in there and just do an inspection of your house. I think everybody should know exactly what issues they're dealing with, because they all have issues. But anyway, we'll leave off with that. Thanks, Richard.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure to come on.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Looking to buy or sell? Call a team you can trust. Don't believe me? Our Google reviews say it all. Put us on your lawn, your house will be gone. TheOPteam.com.